The fluorescent lights inside the diner buzzed faintly above Hannah Cooper's head as she wiped down table 7 for the third time. Her feet hurt so badly she could barely feel her toes anymore. Grease clung to her uniform. Cold coffee sat untouched beside the register. Outside, February rain streaked the windows of the 24-hour diner while headlights smeared across the wet Chicago streets. Table 4 still needs ranch, Carla called from behind the counter. Hannah nodded automatically. Everything in her body moved on habit now. Smile. Refill coffee. Carry plates. Apologize. Survive. The dinner rush had ended an hour ago, but the exhaustion stayed lodged inside her chest like something physical. Her phone vibrated in the pocket of her apron. Another daycare reminder. Payment past due. She closed her eyes briefly. Not now. Please. Hey. Carla lowered her voice while stacking cups beside her. You okay? Hannah forced a smile. Yeah. It came out too quickly. Carla gave her a look that clearly said she didn't believe her, but thankfully didn't push. Everyone at the diner was carrying something heavy. You learn not to pry. By the time Hannah clocked out, it was almost 11. Rain hit her face the second she stepped outside. The bus stop smelled like wet concrete and cigarettes. A man slept curled beneath the bench with newspapers over his legs. Hannah hugged her thin coat tighter around herself and checked her bank account again, even though she already knew the number. $12.47. Payday was 3 days away. Formula was almost gone, and Noah had been fussier than usual all week. The pediatrician thought his stomach was reacting badly to the cheaper brand. Of course it was. Even her son's digestive system apparently had standards they couldn't afford. By the time she climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment building, her entire body ached with exhaustion. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach and old cooking oil. Apartment 4B's television blasted through paper-thin walls. Someone downstairs was arguing loudly in Spanish. Noah's crying reached her before she even unlocked the door. Guilt hit instantly. Always instantly. Mrs. Donnelly stood beside the crib, rocking him gently when Hannah hurried inside. He's been restless tonight, the older woman said softly. Hannah dropped her bag. I'm sorry. The buses were late. Oh, honey. Mrs. Donnelly handed Noah over carefully. You don't have to apologize every 5 minutes. But Hannah did. For everything. For being late. For being tired. For not having enough money. For needing help. Noah whimpered against her chest, tiny fingers grabbing the collar of her uniform. His forehead felt warm. Not fever warm. Just uncomfortable. Mrs. Donnelly hesitated near the door. The formula container looked pretty empty. Hannah swallowed. Yeah. I can lend you. No, too fast. Too sharp. Embarrassment burned across Hannah's face immediately. I mean, thank you. But I'll figure it out. Mrs. Donnelly gave her a sad smile. All right, sweetheart. After she left, the apartment became painfully quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator. The rattle of old heating pipes. Noah's soft cries. Hannah checked the formula container. Enough for maybe 1 bottle. Maybe. Her throat tightened. She sat down heavily on the worn couch and pulled her phone out again. She stared at her brother's number for almost a full minute. James had already helped twice this month. He lived across the country now. New job. New wife. New life. She hated asking. Hated the humiliation of sounding desperate. But Noah's cries broke something inside her. Hannah typed slowly. I don't know how I'm going to make it through tonight. She erased it immediately. Too emotional. Too pathetic. She started again. James, I'm sorry. I need $40 for Noah's formula. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back. Her fingers hovered over send. Every instinct screamed not to do it. Pride was a strange thing. It survived long after dignity disappeared. Finally, before she could rethink it again, she hit send. Then immediately covered her face with one trembling hand. Across downtown Chicago, Ethan Caldwell barely noticed his office lights turning on automatically as midnight approached. The 72nd floor of Caldwell Enterprises overlooked the city like a glass fortress. Below him, headlights moved through rain-slicked streets. Inside, silence pressed against the massive office. No family photos. No personal clutter. Only spreadsheets. Contracts. Numbers. Ethan loosened his tie while reviewing restructuring projections for one of Caldwell Hospitality's restaurant subsidiaries. Projected savings. Insurance reductions. Operational efficiency. The language of business always sounded cleaner than the lives it affected. His phone buzzed beside the tablet. Without thinking, he glanced down. The message stopped him instantly. James, I'm sorry. I need $40 for Noah's formula. Ethan frowned. Wrong number. Obviously. But something about the wording lingered. No performance. No manipulation. Just exhaustion. He stared at the message longer than necessary. Then typed before he could second-guess himself. Is your baby okay? The response came almost immediately. I think you have the wrong number. A pause. Then, I'm sorry. Please ignore this. Ethan should have let it end there. Instead, he found himself staring out at the city lights thinking about a voicemail he still couldn't delete. Claire, his younger sister. 3 years gone. Still unfinished inside him. He typed again. I can help. No strings attached. Across the city, Hannah stared at the screen in disbelief. Every survival instinct activated immediately. Scam. Creep. Danger. Nobody helped strangers for no reason. Especially men with calm, expensive-sounding text messages. She almost blocked the number. Then Noah started crying harder. Her chest physically hurt. What formula does he need? The next message appeared. Hannah looked toward Noah's crib. Pride versus hunger. Pride versus survival. Slowly, she typed. Similac sensitive. Blue container. 38 ounces. The typing bubble appeared instantly. I'll bring it. Her stomach dropped. No, absolutely not. You don't need to come here. I can send money instead. That somehow felt even more dangerous. Hannah rubbed her forehead. Who are you? Ethan looked down at the screen. The truthful answer felt complicated. A man trying unsuccessfully to outrun guilt. Instead, he typed, Ethan. A long pause followed. Then, okay. 15 minutes later, Hannah stood near the apartment window holding Noah against her shoulder while rain hammered the fire escape outside. Every sound downstairs made her tense. What if this was a mistake? What if she was being stupid? What kind of woman invited strange men into her life because she couldn't afford formula? The kind with a hungry baby. That was the answer. The intercom buzzed. Her entire body stiffened. She almost ignored it. Then Noah whimpered weakly again. Hannah pressed the button. Yes. Ethan. His voice sounded calm. Too calm. Like someone unfamiliar with panic. She buzzed him in. A minute later, a knock echoed through the apartment. Hannah opened the door carefully. The man standing outside looked nothing like the people who usually entered this building. Tall. Dark coat, soaked lightly with rain. Expensive shoes. Controlled posture. The kind of presence that immediately changed the atmosphere of a room. But his eyes looked tired. Not physically. Something deeper. He held up a pharmacy bag. Similac sensitive. Hannah stared at the bag like she couldn't quite process it. Real. Actually real. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan glanced toward Noah. The baby's face was flushed from crying. How long has he been upset? Since yesterday, mostly. She immediately hated how defensive she sounded. Ethan noticed. He noticed everything. I wasn't criticizing you. Hannah shifted Noah higher against her shoulder. You don't know enough to criticize me yet. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence stretched briefly. Then unexpectedly, Ethan nodded. Fair. That answer unsettled her. Most wealthy men she'd encountered reacted badly to being challenged. This one simply looked tired. Rainwater dripped quietly from the edge of his coat. You didn't have to stand in the hallway, Hannah said awkwardly. You can come inside for a minute. She instantly regretted it. But stepping into the apartment, Ethan moved carefully, respectfully, like he understood small spaces weren't neutral. The apartment smelled faintly of baby powder, laundry detergent, and stale exhaustion. A pile of unfolded clothes sat beside the couch. Late notices rested beneath a salt shaker near the microwave. Hannah subtly shifted to block his view. Ethan pretended not to notice. Noah fussed again. Can I make the bottle? Ethan asked quietly. Hannah blinked. You know how. A strange shadow crossed his face. Enough. She handed him the container cautiously. Watching him prepare the bottle felt surreal. His sleeves remained rolled neatly. His movements careful. Too practiced. You have kids? She asked before she could stop herself. The question changed something in his expression. No, only one word. But heavy. Hannah noticed immediately. People carrying grief always recognized it in others. Ethan handed her the bottle. Noah latched onto it desperately. The relief that crossed Hannah's face happened so quickly she couldn't hide it. Her shoulders sagged. Her eyes closed briefly. And Ethan realized with sudden uncomfortable clarity that this woman had been holding herself together by threads. Not metaphorically. Literally. He glanced toward the kitchen sink. bills stacked beside unopened mail, an overdue pediatric invoice, a disconnection warning from the electric company. His chest tightened. "You don't have to look embarrassed," he said quietly. Hannah laughed softly, not amused. "That's easy to say when your lights aren't getting shut off Friday." Ethan looked at her more carefully then. Not the exhaustion, not the poverty, the constant calculations happening behind her eyes. Every dollar, every risk, every emergency. Living like that changed people. He knew because Claire had looked the same near the end. Always apologizing, always insisting she was fine, always drowning quietly. Noah finally settled. The apartment grew still. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. "You should sit down," Ethan said. "I'm okay." "You almost fell asleep, standing up." Hannah opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. Because she had. Slowly, she sat on the couch. Ethan remained standing near the counter, not crowding her, not acting entitled to comfort because he had helped. That mattered more than Hannah expected. Most kindness came with pressure attached. Conversation, expectation, debt. This felt different. Still dangerous, but different. "How did you get my number?" she asked suddenly. "I didn't. You know what I mean." Ethan exhaled slowly. "You texted the wrong number." "I figured that part out." A tiny smile almost touched his mouth. "Almost. It belongs to me." "And who exactly are you, Ethan?" He hesitated. Something about this apartment made lying feel uglier than usual. "Ethan Caldwell." Recognition hit instantly. Not complete, but enough. Caldwell. The name from the news. Hotels. Restaurants. Corporate takeovers. Money. Real money. Hannah straightened automatically. "Oh." The distance between them returned immediately. Ethan noticed. "You know the company? My diner was bought by one of your subsidiaries last year." Her voice flattened. "Congratulations." Something uncomfortable settled inside him. What's that supposed to mean? Hannah instantly regretted speaking. People with power didn't enjoy hearing consequences. "Nothing." "No. Say it." She looked down at Noah. "The old owners weren't great," she admitted quietly. "But at least we had insurance." The room went silent. Ethan felt cold suddenly. What diner? Lakeshore Family Grill. His stomach tightened. He knew the restructuring file. Not personally, just numbers. Cost reductions. Benefit cuts. Operational efficiency. No faces. No exhausted mothers counting formula scoops. Hannah saw realization spread across his expression and immediately hated herself for saying anything. "Forget it." "No," Ethan's voice lowered. "When did you lose coverage?" 3 months ago. Noah stirred softly. Hannah rocked him automatically. The manager said corporate didn't think full-time benefits were sustainable anymore. Corporate, meaning him. A spreadsheet somewhere in his office had reached into this apartment and taken something away. Ethan suddenly understood why the place felt so suffocating. Not because of poverty, because he was standing inside damage connected to his own decisions. Neither spoke for several seconds. Finally, Hannah looked exhausted by the entire conversation. "You should go." Ethan nodded slowly. He deserved that. But before he reached the door, Noah let out a weak, coughing sound. Hannah stiffened instantly. The baby's tiny body felt too warm. She touched his forehead. Panic spread across her face. "Oh no." Ethan turned back immediately. "Hannah." "He feels hotter." She grabbed the thermometer from beside the microwave. Her hands shook. 103.8. The number drained color from her face. "We need a hospital," Ethan said. "No." The refusal came instantly. Ethan stared at her. "Hannah, I still owe them from the last visit." Tears filled her eyes. "They sent collections after me." Noah whimpered weakly. The sound tore through the apartment. Ethan moved toward her carefully. "He needs treatment." "You think I don't know that?" Her voice cracked. "I know exactly what he needs. I just can't afford every emergency." The honesty in that sentence hit harder than anger. Not irresponsibility. Not neglect. Math. Terrible, impossible math. Ethan took his keys out. "Hannah." She looked exhausted beyond tears. "I'm not asking permission." 20 minutes later, the pediatric emergency room glowed harsh white beneath fluorescent lights. Children cried somewhere behind curtains. A vending machine hummed beside rows of plastic chairs. Parents slumped against walls drinking cold coffee, while monitors beeped steadily down the hall. Hannah sat beside Noah's hospital bed, twisting the sleeve of her sweater between trembling fingers. Ethan stood near the doorway, watching nurses move quickly through the corridor. He hated hospitals. Always had. The smell alone brought Claire rushing back. A nurse entered holding paperwork. Insurance. Hannah swallowed. It expired. The nurse checked the screen. Caldwell Hospitality? Ethan looked up sharply. The nurse recognized him immediately. Her eyes widened, then carefully lowered. Hannah noticed. Of course she noticed. You own Caldwell Hospitality, she said quietly. Not a question. Ethan said nothing. That silence confirmed everything. Hannah stared at him. The betrayal on her face somehow hurt worse because they barely knew each other. My manager said corporate cuts were necessary. Ethan opened his mouth. No defense came. What exactly could he say? That he hadn't personally meant to hurt her? That spreadsheets looked cleaner from the 72nd floor? I didn't know, he admitted finally. Hannah laughed softly. A broken sound. People like you never do. The nurse awkwardly stepped back out of the room. Silence remained. Noah coughed weakly again. Hannah immediately focused on him instead. Protecting the baby. Pushing emotions aside. Survival. Ethan watched her carefully. No dramatic outburst. No screaming. Just exhaustion. That somehow made everything uglier. Hours later, Noah's fever finally lowered. The doctor explained it was likely a stomach virus worsened by dehydration. He should recover fine, she assured softly. Hannah nearly cried from relief. When the doctor left, Ethan remained near the window. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Hannah looked tired beyond anger now. For what specifically? The question landed cleanly. Because there were too many possible answers. The insurance. The hospital. The apartment. The exhaustion. The entire system. I don't know anymore, Ethan admitted. That honesty surprised both of them. At dawn, rain still covered the city. Hannah adjusted Noah carefully against her chest outside the hospital entrance. I can take the bus, she said. Ethan looked toward the freezing street. It's 6 in the morning. I've noticed. He exhaled slowly. Hannah, you can't fix this because you feel guilty. The word stopped him. My rent still exists tomorrow. A bus hissed past, spraying dirty water across the curb. My daycare bill still exists tomorrow. She shifted Noah higher. And your company still cut our insurance. Ethan stayed silent. Because she was right. And for the first time in years, being right felt unbearable. Still, when the bus finally arrived, overloaded and half full of exhausted night workers, Hannah hesitated. Noah stirred weakly in her arms. Ethan saw the fear she tried hiding. Not fear of him. Fear of handling everything alone again. Quietly, he held out the car keys. I'll drive. This time she didn't argue. The following week passed strangely. Hannah expected Ethan to disappear. Rich men helped impulsively all the time, then moved on. Instead, he kept showing up. Not dramatically, quietly. A grocery delivery. A message asking if Noah's fever stayed down. A contact for discounted pediatric medication. One afternoon, he sat beside her at the free clinic while she filled out humiliating financial assistance forms. Neither spoke much. But when she struggled to answer a section asking about emergency contacts, Ethan quietly slid the clipboard closer. You missed page 4. No pity. Just help. That mattered. Still, Hannah kept emotional distance carefully intact. Because dependence terrified her. Her ex-boyfriend Tyler had taught her exactly how quickly support could become control. At first, Tyler had been charming. Helpful. Protective. Then slowly, where are you going? Why are you wearing that? Who were you texting? By the time Noah was born, Hannah barely recognized herself. Tyler disappeared 2 months later after deciding fatherhood interfered with his freedom. She learned quickly that survival depended on expecting abandonment before it arrived. So when Ethan appeared outside the diner one snowy evening holding 2 coffees, Hannah's first reaction wasn't warmth. It was suspicion. You can't keep doing this. Ethan leaned against the hood of his car. Doing what? Showing up. A faint smile almost appeared. You say that like it's criminal. It's confusing. That honesty surprised her. Ethan handed her the coffee. I'm not trying to rescue you, Hannah. Aren't you? He looked down briefly. Maybe I'm trying to understand what I broke. The words lingered between them. Cold winds swept down the street, carrying snowflakes across the parking lot. Hannah studied him carefully. The expensive coat. The exhaustion behind his eyes. The loneliness. He looked like a man who had built enormous things while quietly destroying himself somewhere along the way. Why does this bother you so much? She asked softly. Ethan stared toward the diner windows. My sister died 3 years ago. Hannah froze. He rarely volunteered personal information. She had a baby boy. His voice stayed calm. Too calm. The hospital missed complications after delivery because she delayed treatment. Snow gathered lightly across his shoulders. She was terrified of medical bills. Hannah's chest tightened. Ethan exhaled slowly. I was too busy becoming successful to notice she was drowning. There it was. The real thing. Beneath the control. Guilt. Not performative. Not polished. Rotting quietly inside him for years. She called me the night before she collapsed. His jaw tightened. I listened to the voicemail 3 weeks later. Hannah looked away, because suddenly the cold parking lot felt too intimate. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ethan laughed softly. So am I. For the first time since meeting him, Hannah stopped seeing only the billionaire and saw the damaged human being underneath. That scared her more, because emotionally wounded people recognized each other too easily. Weeks passed. Winter slowly softened into early spring. Ethan stopped trying to solve problems with money. Instead, he learned smaller things. How long Medicaid paperwork took. How humiliating daycare payment plans felt. How exhausted Hannah became after double shifts. One evening at the grocery store, Ethan reached automatically for the more expensive formula brand. Hannah stopped him immediately. No, the doctor recommended this one. It's $14 more. You don't have to think about that right now. Yes, I do. Her voice sharpened. That's the difference between our lives. The word stayed with him all night. Not because she insulted him, because she explained survival. Another evening, Noah reached toward Ethan from his stroller while they waited in line at a pharmacy. Ethan awkwardly took him. The toddler immediately grabbed his tie. Hannah laughed before she could stop herself. A real laugh. Small. Tired. But real. Ethan looked at her instinctively. The sound hit somewhere deep inside his chest. Dangerously deep. Hannah noticed the look immediately, and her walls rose again. This was exactly how attachment started. Quietly. Accidentally. An attachment always costs something eventually. That night she texted him less. Took longer answering. Pulled back. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. He almost confronted her. Then realized she wasn't obligated to trust him simply because he cared. Trust wasn't charity. It had to feel safe. And people like him rarely felt safe to women like Hannah. Especially after everything his company represented. 3 days later, Hannah's landlord taped another rent increase notice to her door. She stared at it for almost a full minute while Noah cried from inside the apartment. Something inside her finally cracked. Not dramatically. Quietly. She slid down the hallway wall, covering her face while exhaustion swallowed her whole. When Ethan called that evening, she almost ignored it. Almost. You sound tired, he said immediately. I am tired. Silence. Then softly, what happened? And somehow that question undid her more than sympathy would have. Because he genuinely wanted the answer. Hannah stared at the rent notice in her lap. I can't keep living like this. Her voice shook. I'm trying so hard, and everything keeps getting more expensive. Noah fussed nearby. The sink dripped steadily. A neighbor screamed at someone through thin apartment walls. I haven't slept through the night in 11 months. She wiped tears angrily. I'm tired of calculating diapers against groceries. Ethan listened quietly. No solutions. No interruption. Just listening. And for some reason, that mattered more than the formula ever had. A week later, Ethan visited the diner near closing. Not in a suit this time. Dark sweater. No tie. Less armor. Hannah brought coffee to his booth automatically. You look weird without corporate clothing. A faint smile touched his mouth. You look less suspicious of me today. Don't get excited. But she sat down across from him anyway. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and fries. An old blues song played quietly overhead. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Hannah finally asked the question she'd avoided. Why me? Ethan stared down at the untouched coffee between his hands. When your text came through, he paused. I think part of me panicked. Hannah listened silently. My sister used to sound exactly like that near the end. His jaw tightened. Always apologizing for needing help. The diner lights buzzed softly overhead. I couldn't save her, he admitted. His voice nearly broke on the last word. So when I saw your message, he exhaled slowly. I didn't want to fail someone again. Hannah looked down at her hands. Not because the confession magically fixed everything. It didn't. His company still hurt people. Her life was still hard. Trust still felt dangerous. But now she understood something important. Ethan wasn't helping because he believed himself heroic. He was helping because guilt had hollowed something inside him. And maybe because loneliness had. Just like her. I still don't know if I trust you, she admitted. Ethan nodded once. That's fair. No defensiveness. No pressure. Just acceptance. That honesty settled somewhere quietly inside her chest. Spring arrived slowly in Chicago. Dirty snow disappeared from sidewalks in uneven patches. Cold winds still swept between buildings, but sunlight lasted longer now. One afternoon, Hannah stood outside Noah's daycare holding a paper coffee cup between both hands. Across the parking lot, Ethan crouched beside Noah, helping him zip a tiny blue jacket. The toddler laughed loudly at something Ethan whispered. The sound carried through the chilly air. Hannah watched them quietly. The scene didn't feel perfect. That was why it mattered. No fantasy. No dramatic declarations. Just two tired adults trying carefully not to fail each other. Ethan walked over carrying Noah against his shoulder. You're thinking too hard again, he said. I usually am. A small smile touched his face. That smile no longer looked polished. Just human. Hannah stared down into her coffee. The landlord raised rent again. Ethan sighed. Of course he did. Noah tugged Ethan's sleeve impatiently. Park, the toddler demanded. Ethan nodded seriously. Yes, sir. Noah giggled. Hannah watched them. Life still hurt. Bills still existed. Exhaustion still existed. Nothing had transformed magically. But the loneliness no longer felt absolute. And maybe that was what healing actually looked like. Not rescue. Not perfection. Just someone willing to stay. Ethan glanced toward her. You okay? The question carried real weight now. Not politeness. A genuine willingness to hear the truth. Hannah breathed in the cold spring air slowly. Then out. Not completely, she admitted. Ethan nodded. Me neither. And somehow that honesty felt warmer than reassurance ever could. Noah reached toward both of them at once. After a brief hesitation, Hannah took Ethan's hand. Not forever. Not perfectly. Just for now. And for the first time in a very long time. That felt like enough.